I want to talk about Penny Dreadful,
Let's.
and people are loving that show. I think the season finale just aired, correct?
It aired, yes, on Sunday. Now,
Yes.
this is the my and because yes, of course, I would love to talk about Penny, but I think airs tomorrow in the UK. So I'm going to try
Okay.
and spoiler free as I possibly can. I mean, there's definitely some stuff that I've already said out there on the internet, but as long as I don't spoil the ending of episode 10, I think I'm in a good stead.
Okay, cool. No spoilers, but tell me about the show. You know, for everyone watching, a few people, because you mentioned Penny earlier, and I guess a few fans haven't checked it out yet. So, what is the show about? Tell me about your character, and
Yeah.
tell everyone why we cannot miss this show in quarantine.
Well, again, this is what's so interesting is, and this one this really hits the nail on the head with the social allegory, the exactly what's happening in real life being reflected in the TV show. Um, Very much cut. So it's set in 1938 Los Angeles, and the two sort of overriding stories are the racial unrest between Mexican Los Angeleans and white America, which was then very poignant, and obviously still now we have some real steps to make for positive action to be taken. And then the other side of the story is the influx of Nazi Germany into Los Angeles. And what the number one thing that I thought was so interesting because of my character and where he goes in the story and what his function is in the story was that a lot of this is based directly in real life, which I didn't know. I didn't know that the Nazis did have their sights on Los Angeles, and they wanted to take over the movie theaters, and they wanted to take over the ports, and they wanted literally Hitler to have his eagle's nest in the hills in Los Angeles, because he wanted it to be the first breaking ground for the new America, and they ideally wanted it to be New York. But as they say in the show, New York was run by the Jewish community, so that was never going to work for the Nazis, obviously. They set their sights on Los Angeles, thinking that they could spread across America, and obviously that wasn't the case. But interestingly to me, when I was doing my research, I was sort of reading it, and they sent us an amazing, 100-page booklet of research after I'd done a lot of mine. Reading through a lot of it, and I was like, is this like concept art? Is this concept work? And it's real file footage of like Nazi sympathizers marching up and down Hollywood Boulevard. Like, and it's just so blowing that was the case, but it was. And I think one of the key things that I thought was so interesting about doing this show and why I was so excited to do it is because politically it's so aligned with everything that's going on right now, but set 60 years in the past, and I thought that was really fascinating.
And now you did this show pretty soon after you wrapped Shadowhunters, right? Like there wasn't a ton of downtime.
There was a little. So after I finished Shadowhunters, and again, this is something I've said a little bit. It was really important for me that I took like a very different fork in my career, because there was some options for shows that were kind of similar, or within sort of a similar world. And for me, it was really important that I strayed away from that, and I not only character-wise but also storytelling-wise, that I did something that was very different, not only to what I'd done recently, but what I'd done ever. So I intentionally took about 3 months off, and then spent the next 3 months actually looking for something that filled all of those sort of bullet points. And then Penny Dreadful came up, and I read about the character, and I read about the story. Not only that, but the opportunity to work with John Logan. And at the time, the only people at the casting time, the only people who had been cast was Nathan Lane, Natalie Dormer, and Danny Zavato. And it's just a no-brainer at that point. Nathan Lane is royalty in the acting world. Natalie Dormer, fast becoming the same, and Danny as well. But I'd actually seen some of Danny's work and seen how fantastic he was. And again, it was a real thrill to potentially be able to work with him. So that was sort of the plan. So it ended up being about 6 months off. Half was on purpose, and half was not on purpose.
And a lot of people asking if they'll have more. They want more of that show.
I do too. I know, I do too. So fingers crossed. You know, unfortunately, we don't know anything at the moment. If I did, I probably wouldn't be allowed to tell you anyway because it would. We genuinely don't know anything yet. Hopefully, in the coming months, we'll find out something, something positive. But
All right.
I'm holding my breath as much as everyone else.
All right, we're sending good vibes your way about that. Come on, it's gonna happen. And Dom, I'm always so impressed. You just immerse yourself in your characters. Like you go full force. It's you can tell you're just fully committed to who you're playing, especially in a show like this right now. So for you, what do you like or enjoy exploring about getting to play these different types of characters?
Um, I think it's sort of like my answer is sort of in the question. I think one of the reasons that I became an actor and why I enjoy doing this is because I do have this like plethora of different people to explore and to delve into, and I think that's what I find so interesting. But then, sort of conversely, on the other side of that, like Jace, I really tried to throw myself into as much as possible. Um, Kurt, a little less so, because there are some things that he believes that I don't believe, without giving away his sort of profession in the show. But I obviously don't feel that way. So that, you know, there are times where you do have to align yourself with, you know, this is what he's doing for this reason, and there's a part of you that has to kind of almost empathize with that and feel it. Otherwise it's tricky because you're just kind of saying words and there's no like emotion or passion behind them.
Right.
But then very, very important that you take yourself out of that sensation. And I guess the same could be said for some of the darker stuff that Jace did throughout Shadowhunters. You know, he did some pretty evil stuff throughout the show when he was possessed and so on and so forth. And it's very important to take yourself away from that stuff because it is emotionally quite I guess it's quite hard on your soul. Maybe it's quite harrowing to go through that sort of stuff and actually be the perpetrator of that sort of stuff, especially, you know, especially in Penny Dreadful, the murder and killing, and then the lack of emotion connected to those killing, like it's just sort of another day of doing anything. That's really hard work and quite hard to detach yourself from. But I'm very lucky that I have the dog and the cat here, and I can come home, cuddle them, and play with them. Everything's sort of back to normal and happy and smiley.
Taylor Swift, how was it working with her?
So Taylor is the most incredible woman. She has built an empire on like songbird level music, but also, you know, you don't kind of get to that level without a scratch on you media wise, without actually being a really nice person. And she really is. This came about because we'd met through my ex, like very briefly at Disney once. And then out of the blue, she texted me and was like, "Hey, would you ever think about being in a music video?" And I was like, "Maybe." Like, I just finished a film, so I wasn't working, but I was a bit like, "Yeah, you know, it depends who it's for." And she said, "Oh, it'd be for me." And I went, "Yeah, okay, I'll do it." So, but she was the most supportive. Like, I was nervous. Taylor Swift, I was nervous. And she was really supportive and friendly. She knew the crew's name. She was a real, which it sounds like such a silly thing, but it's not something that happens all the time, you know. And it is a really important thing. And she was such a light to be around, and I imagine still is. We haven't spoken in a while, but it was just such an amazing experience. She's such an inspirationally amazing young woman that I can only wish her the best and thank her for setting my career in the right direction.
You are a voice of hope for so many. I don't know if you've been able to see it, but a lot of people in the comments have been saying today how much your messages really have helped them during different points of their lives.
Right.
And I think that, you know, we live in this culture now that I like to call the comparison world, and everyone's constantly comparing themselves to what they see on social media or a highlight reel or the person who's doing X, Y, and Z and they're not. And I think it's gotten worse and worse. Like, I hear people in their young 20s complaining about not achieving their wildest dreams, and you know, I try to tell them, take a minute, you'll get there. So for you, for all your fans watching, what advice do you have for them about coming into their own, both personally and professionally?
Yeah, tough, isn't it? Because, you know, even I do that. I do that where I look at, like, the actors my age who are achieving so much more than me, the sort of you know, the Nick Holt's of the world. There is always a part of you in the back of your mind that thinks, why aren't I doing that? Why aren't I in that? But then, and Alberto told me this when we were talking about this one day. He said, you know, you sort of forget that there are people who were in my position maybe 10 years ago who are now potentially looking at me like that, which is really amazing. And it's just the different people in the different stages are a testament to exactly what you were saying, that it's your journey and you can still look up to the top of the mountain, but you're the one who has to walk your way up there. You know, you find what it is that you want, you find, and you can have your goals, you can be aspiring of whoever it is, if it is someone, but you absolutely cannot let that be a negative thing. It has to be in your mind a positive thing. It has to be a goal, and it is an achievable goal. You know, people like you and I are a testament to that. We found something that we enjoyed doing, and we made it happen. And you know, I think that's the really important thing. And it's again something that comes up. A question I get asked a lot is how do you deal with the rejection of auditions and this, that, and the other. And you got to remember that you've still got your goal there, and it's just another little hurdle that you've got to hop over because the finish line is there and it is within reach. And you should see everything around you not as negative things, but as positive things, little like challenges, the next step up the mountain. And I think that's the best way to look at it, and it's how I try to look at it